Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. I'm your host, JP John Poz. With me today, very special guest, returning guest many, many years ago. Of course, been doing this for almost 8 years, and you were one of the first guests 8 years ago, believe it or not. But former ROH World Champion, former ROH Pure Champion, one of the greatest champions in Ring of Honor history, of course, a WWE and NXT announcer as well, Mr. Nigel McGuinness. Nigel, what is going on? How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Very excited to be part of the show, John. Or should I call you Poz?
Sure,
Which
yeah,
prefer?
that's cool. Yeah, that's either one's good with me.
I'll go with Poz then. Yeah, I'm doing very well. Very excited. Got some new things coming up. A very exciting time for me. So yeah, you said 8 years is a long time. A lot can happen in 8 years, and sometimes a lot can happen in 8 minutes.
Yes, very, very true. So, what is going on in your world? What is the magic behind Nigel? What is going on with you and what's
Yeah,
coming up?
well, where do we start? Magic is something I've been a fan of, a little bit of an aficionado for as well, for a long time, a lot longer than 8 years, actually. It started back when I was in high school. When I started wrestling in Japan, was when I really got into it. I'd take a pack of cards out after a show when a sponsor would take me out. And just it was a way to entertain the people who were good enough to take me out and buy me dinner. But also, sometimes when you're out there, there'd be food that you weren't really sure what it was. So I could do a magic trick rather than necessarily having to eat something that was still
Yep.
alive.
Yep.
But be the case, I've done that. I've done magic backstage all around the business now ever since, for the last decade or so. And people were always telling me, man, you're so good. Like, you should do your own show. Why don't you do your own show? And I'll be honest with you, when you're doing commentary all the time and you've got a lot of other things going on in your life, it's hard to really find the time to commit to it. And I also felt like there are so many other magicians in the world. I don't want to start at ground one at the level and then have to try to build up to get to them. So what happened was, after WWE and I went our separate ways in October of last year, I sat down with a piece of paper and thought, what comes next to me? What are the ideas? What might be my muse? And magic was one of them. But to that point, I didn't want to just try to break into the magic industry. I thought, how can I build on the cachet that I've got in the wrestling business?
Yep.
I've got some friends in the magic industry as well who gave me some advice. And one of my good friends, the late great Max Maven, who was one of the best mentalists in the history of the industry, he liked to always draw the parallels between pro wrestling and magic, how the big covers the small, and a lot of the moments and the things, a lot of similarities. And so I tried to draw on a lot of those influences and come up with a show that wasn't just a magic show. It's more part spoken word, part interview, all homage to pro wrestling, using magic as a way of emphasizing a lot of the things I'm talking about. So as I said, the first half is a spoken word part where I'm really just talking about my career, detailing everything that happened. I've got an effect that talks about destiny. I've got an effect that talks about dreams, about the power of distraction, all stories that relate to my personal journey as well. And then the second half is an interview segment with a couple of surprise guests from the wrestling industry. And the questions that I ask them and the answers they give, I parlay and segue that into various different effects as well. Talking about the first match that they saw, talking about the people they've met, advice they've got, that sort of stuff. And so it's come together over the last 2 or 3 months. I've been putting it together. And just with WrestleMania in town and the eyes of the wrestling world on Los Angeles and living here, I thought now was the time to get it up on its feet, as you will, get it on stage. And so next Thursday, it's March the 30th, at the Illusion Magic Lounge in Santa Monica, which is an incredible venue set up specifically for magic, but they have a lot of other things. It's a wonderful place. You can get there a little bit early. You can have a drink. They've got a bar license, have a bite to eat, and then come in and see the show. I do expect there to be some really notable people there. It's going to be a fun night. Not a lot of seats available. So if you're interested, if you're in town, get your seats while you can. I'm on Twitter at McGuinness Nigel, where I'm posting the link, or you can find it online wherever you are. So I know there's going to be a lot of people in town. I also know there's a lot of other stuff going on, and it's kind of last minute. But I felt like this was something I had to take the advantage of, John, while he had the opportunity to put it out there. And it's one night only, so I'm very excited. It's the first time I've ever done it. I'm a little bit nervous, but nerves are a good thing. And I think this could be a huge step for me. And it really does mean a lot for me to be able to take this next step and to do it in a way that does, as I said, it pays homage to something that I've loved ever since I was a young child, that being professional wrestling. And I'm sure, John, you can identify with that as well.
Big time, yes. And it's cool though because magic and wrestling, like you saying, there's a lot of parallels and stuff, but nobody's really combined them really before. So you even could throw something else out to the market that this is completely different than anything you've seen before, and maybe we'll never see again. I mean, it's just so interesting that you're mending or melding, however you want to word that. You're putting the two worlds together.
I'm very excited about it. I really am. It's something I've been thinking about for a while, but being able to put it together. And oftentimes these things come together with a lot of serendipity at the last minute. I mean, the venue, they're booked for the previous 6 Thursdays. They're booked for the next 2 months of Thursdays. It just happened to be that this Thursday was available when I reached out. So I jumped on it. The same thing starting to fall into place. So, sometimes with these things, you just got to jump in with both feet and hope that it fits. But yes, to your point, this is different. It's something new. It draws on a lot of parallels from the magic world. If you're familiar with Darren Brown or Derek Delgado in and of itself, who had a special on Hulu, which was just incredible in terms of what he did, the way that you meld the spoken word in with the magic, etc., etc. It does that a lot. It's an homage to a lot of the friends and family that I've met through my time. Jay Briscoe specifically gets a mention, near and dear. This is an homage to Jay. It's an homage to everybody in the business. Yeah.
When you look at it too, I know you worked on the Carbonaro effect for a little bit too, right? So Michael Carbonaro is an awesome magician, and everybody ever seen that show? It's on True TV. I think every Saturday morning they replay like 5 episodes in a row. So if anybody hasn't seen it, you could literally catch up right away on it. That's an awesome show. Did you learn a lot from Michael?
Yeah, well, very much so. I mean, funnily enough, after I got out of the wrestling business, to all intents and purposes, in ring, I was still working for Ring of Honor in a matchmaker capacity. I was doing some odd jobs as a video editor, assistant editor in the background. And so that was one of the gigs that I got working on Michael's show. And so he didn't realize at the time that I was actually a bit of a magic buff myself. So a couple of times when he came in the post-production office, I asked him a couple of things and he showed me a couple of things. And David Regal, who is a god among magicians, was there as well to help me out a little bit. So that was fantastic. And to see how that worked as well gave me great insight. And Michael's a fantastic guy. I just saw him recently at the Magic Castle. So yeah, it's a big community in magic, the same way as it is in wrestling. And it'd be nice to meld those two things together.
The greatest thing that he does that I love is he kind of, puts it out there. He does the trick, but then he kind of moves to the background and you're just watching the person's reaction. I love that because they're like laughing for a second, then they're shocked, then they're confused, and then the wheels are turning. You could literally see smoke come out of their ears. I just love that little touch by him where he's like, I'm going to let their reaction play like a big role. He's great at that, like kind of letting them feed the action, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. He's brilliant. That show is brilliant. And there's a reason why it's been around for so long and there's so many episodes, because it's a great, fantastic idea. But so is this show Celebration that's coming out on Thursday. And I'm just really hoping that first step for me in that direction goes well. I'm pretty certain I'm going to be excited about it.
It's awesome. The magic of Nigel McGuinness is going to be very, very cool. When you look at wrestling, though, are you done with wrestling? Or like, what are your thoughts? Because you said October until now, October 22, you get a WWE release. You've been sitting there, you've been thinking about it. Are you done? Are you not done? What's the future in wrestling?
Well, I'm certainly open to offers and possibilities. And obviously, I've been putting some feelers out there, seeing if there is any interest. There's been various different bites here and there, but without going into the details, nothing's taken yet. But hopefully, professional wrestling is an industry that I've devoted the large portion of my life to. And when I went my separate ways from WWE and I sat down with a piece of paper, obviously, I wrote down wrestling as one of those things because I'd be silly to walk away from an industry that has treated me so well and given me so many blessings over the last 10, 20 years, So certainly open to offers, but nothing definitive right now. It's a very exciting, interesting world in the professional wrestling industry at the moment. Always is, but especially right now, WrestleMania season, there's so many people from all over the world coming into Los Angeles. There's a lot going on, and a lot to talk about as too.
Have you been keeping up though? Do you follow wrestling like maybe as closely as you once did?
No. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, even when I was in the wrestling business, I didn't necessarily follow it that much. There's so much out there. There's so much product. I mean, when you were a kid, there wasn't that much. I mean, there were maybe 2 major shows, maybe an hour or 2 a week. Now it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible to follow everything that's going on. So obviously, like most people, I'm on social media, so I pick up the odd thing here and there. I follow this and that. But beyond that, it's just too much to keep up. I just like following the good stuff, On Twitter, I'll follow a lot of the positive people that say funny things, interesting things, comedians as well. But right now, I don't follow too much.
What about in ring? Are you retired in ring? Will you return in ring at all, or no, not in the cards?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, everybody's asked me that as soon as I went my separate ways from WWE as well. I can't give a definitive answer other than to say that I certainly feel my strengths at this point in my life are in other aspects of the industry, but I wouldn't rule it out 100% either. There's always that part of you that wants to have that final moment. But sometimes cooler and smarter heads have to prevail. So it's a cliche, of course, just to say never. You see a lot of people, Edge, Lita, Trish, of course, A lot of people come back and have really, really good matches and have a really positive influence on the industry and in a way are able to help the next generation. I think that's fantastic. So only time will tell, John, what really happens from here. I've got a lot of strings to my bow, getting ready to fire.
Love it. You were one of the best. So if you came back, that would be, I don't know, it would be amazing to me if you were able to return.
Yeah, amazing to me. Yeah, someone said to me when I was actually at WWE, they said, Nigel, I bet you could get in the ring tomorrow. I said, absolutely. I'm just not sure if I could get back out. So
well said. Yeah.
yeah.
Right. I don't know, to me though, it's one of those things where I wish because the way it ended, obviously, you probably feel a certain way about it, but as a fan, it's like, man, that was the guy that had so much potential, or there could have been so much more to the career. Wish we could have saw more because what we saw was amazing. That's just the feeling that a lot of us fans have for sure.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that and the support that so many of my fans have showed me. Just remember the time that I retired, when I did my documentary as well, the number
Yep.
of people I met through making my documentary, which was funded solely from Kickstarter, from the support of fans, to be able to tell my story, to be able to be an advocate for not the use of not using too much blood in wrestling. All the things that I could do because of that have been fantastic. So I understand, obviously, it's disappointing. There's still an era of disappointment to me, but I talk to people about it for the longest time, and no one gets everything they want out of life. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, life, it's a pot shoot. It's a gamble. You sit at the table, you roll the dice, and you get what you get. So I feel very blessed for the career that I've had. And when you think about it as well, we've had some tragedies, in the wrestling industry. And I certainly could have been one of those as well. I feel very blessed to have had the second career in the wrestling business that I have in terms of commentary that has arguably far more longevity than the in-ring career has as well. So in the grand scheme of things, I've been very lucky, very, very lucky.
When you look at it, did you like commentary as much as you liked wrestling? I know it's completely different, and obviously your first love is wrestling, but did you like that aspect of it because you were so good at it, you're so passionate on it? Was it something that you equally enjoyed as much as you enjoyed the actual physical wrestling part?
Yeah, absolutely was. Very much so. Commentary was something that I never thought about doing in any way, shape, or form. I was very lucky that when my in-ring career ended, Ring of Honor, and specifically people in the company I was friends with went out of their way to get me a non-wrestling role, for which I will always be grateful. First on commentary and then as a matchmaker. So yes, the commentary was something I didn't take to it very easily at first. As most people who try commentary, they find out pretty quickly how difficult it is. You got to find your voice. You've got to find out what it is you're adding to the show. And to that end, I think I took a big influence from Joe Rogan, what he did on UFC and how he found his voice there. And I tried to do something similar within pro wrestling. It's obviously a little bit of a different medium, but still there are a lot of similarities with that. And so once I found that voice, and then when I was able to go to WWE and get that kind of feedback and that kind of experience from guys like Michael Cole or Tom Phillips, Hannafan, it was amazing. I've said to people sometimes, if I knew this much about commentary when I went to WWE, this is what I learned.
Yeah.
It was just absolutely incredible and speaks to the talent and the ability that guys like Michael Cole and Tom and all those play-by-play guys have to just keep things on track. I'm doing, I actually just did a seminar recently on commentary, and there's not a lot of that out there. There's a lot of information about being a wrestler, a lot of former wrestlers, and that's great.
Yep.
But not so much in the commentary industry. And so when I had the seminar and I saw all the people there, it suddenly occurred to me how much information there really is in terms of being a good commentator, because it's so different depending on where you are. I mean, if you're a commentator for WWE, it oftentimes can be a very different job than if you're a commentator for Ring of Honor or New Japan or AEW or whatever it is, you know what I mean? So to be a great commentator nowadays, you've got to have great versatility,
It's one of the things where I think people almost take it for granted, like, oh, that's easy to put the pieces together. I don't know, like a guy like Michael Cole's been doing it forever. There's not many guys out there that can kind of, I don't know, be that kind of guiding light where you're putting the pieces together, but then also, oh, you got to promote Progressive Insurance. What I mean, there's a lot of stuff you got to do, and you might have somebody in your ear telling you something else too. So there's a lot going into commentary. They're kind of like the narrator of the show.
Well, they are the narrator.
Yeah,
of the
they
show.
are.
Absolutely, yeah. And the play-by-play guy, it's his booth, and it's he who's got to control everything that's going on.
Yep.
And to be honest with you, everything lives and dies by him. So I really think that Michael Cole is one of the most underrated and underappreciated commentators in the history of this industry. I cannot put him over enough.
Man, it's crazy. He's been there since basically 97.
Right, 97, 98, yeah.
Yeah, so he's been there forever. And his mentor, Todd Pettengill, was there before him for 5 or 6 years. So it's funny. I know Pettengill is a different role, but Pettengill got him in. So it's like, wow,
Right.
the Pettengill era, if you will, with Cole continuing it on. It's been there literally for 3 or 4 decades. It's crazy how long.
Yeah, very interesting.
Were you surprised at all by the release when you got released, or no?
It wasn't a huge shock to me. I don't think so. I think with the NXT UK brand being put on hiatus and moving a lot of guys over to NXT, I kind of wasn't being used as much as I might be. And so I understood that certainly, I'm not sure how much longer that role was going to be there. I was very grateful to still be employed as long as I was, doing the smaller shows in terms of Level Up or 205, the ability to work with younger guys and stuff like that, and watch younger guys just breaking into this industry. That was a great experience in and of itself. So, but to your point, no, wasn't a huge shock. Again, I just felt very grateful for everything that had happened there, and very appreciative of the 6 years of the learning and the education and the experience.
Man, it's funny, when you look at it, it's like, man, Nigel kind of took to it. To me, I know you said it was harder, but it felt like you were very natural. It felt like you took to it well, and it felt like you really were a good chemistry partner with whoever you were working with. You really, I don't know, you work very well, and even if it's a different style, if than Ring of Honor was per se, you melded
Mm.
and you were able to be pretty effective in WWF as well, or WWE, excuse me.
Yeah, I think I was as well. I really enjoyed my time there. And the great thing about WWE, there's so many talented people that work there as well. But of course, none of it would have been possible were it not for the UK tournament getting started in the first place. And
Yes.
again, Michael Cole bringing me in, sitting beside me, making sure that I had the best entrance into the company that I possibly could. So without that, I don't think I would have been half as successful.
As we wind it down here, we'll head towards the finish, and we'll just kind of just talk about wrestling, your career, if you will, for a second.
Mm,
What are some of your favorite matches that you had? Because to me, the Bryan Danielson
mm,
feud in Ring of Honor, one of my best. I could still, go in and pop in those matches and watch those matches. Awesome matches. The title for title match, you with the huge knot on your head from the ring post. I mean, it just, you guys had
mm.
every match you had was amazing. Marishima was amazing. Austin Aries, Chris Hero. But who are some of your favorites?
Yeah, people ask me that question a lot, favorite matches and stuff like that. The matches with Dragon, of course, stand up there, and I think still hold up today in terms of the best matches that I've had. Obviously, Kurt Angle as well. The matches that I had with
Yes, those are
Kurt there
amazing. Yep.
in TNA, and I think I had something to prove there in TNA as well because of the miscommunication with me getting hired by WWE and then them rescinding the contract as a wrestler. I
Yep.
felt like I really wanted to go out there and prove that they missed the opportunity with me as a wrestler and to go out there and have the best matches I possibly could with Kurt. And thankfully, I got put with him and we did really well with it. But oftentimes, John, to your question, some of my favorite matches are the smaller ones where I didn't feel so much pressure. You're in big matches like that, and sometimes you don't really enjoy them until they're over, if that makes sense, because you're so
Yep.
nervous while it's going on. I'm sure the Magic Show on Thursday is going to be something similar. But I think back to my match or my career, excuse me. I remember a match I had with Delirious in Orlando. It was opening up the first match on the show. And that was one of my favorites because it's so smooth and so enjoyable. And Delirious was just such a fun person to work with because the crowd was always there for it.
And
And
no
you
pressure.
oftentimes, not a whole lot of pressure there exactly as well. And so oftentimes that was what you enjoyed the most. If you had someone who had a lot of character, a lot of personality, was a really solid in the ring as well, you could just both go out and just feel it out and relax. And that's something I was talking to my old trainer, Les Thatcher, this morning
Nice.
on his podcast. And he was talking about how the in-ring style has changed in terms of the pace, in terms of your ability to do stuff on the fly, etc., etc. And that was something that I certainly enjoyed being able to do. That nowadays, with TV wrestling, you're very limited in that regard to do more ad lib. So it certainly has changed it. But I was actually just talking to Les as well, and there was another match, one of my last matches in TNA. And I wasn't even booked on the show. They needed an extra match. I was just sat back there, and one of the agents came back there, and I think they wanted to just test me, or maybe they just needed anyone. I was back there. Stevie Richards was back there. They just pointed to me, and Stevie Richards said, "We need a match now. We need 7 minutes. Go." And we literally changing on the way to the ring out there. And because Stevie is so good and such a professional, boom, it just was smooth. And that's that feeling, because it's one thing to plan for a long time to have a match and have it all here, but it's very different to just go out there and rely on your laurels and rely on your ability. And that's a different sense of magic, but that's certainly a match I will remember too. And a match that a lot of people don't realize, you know what I mean? Sometimes you see a match and go, oh, it's just a 7-minute match. It's quite simple, but you don't know what goes into it. You don't know how it's set up, and
Yep.
Stevie is a guy that I have the utmost respect for, as well as Les, as well as many of the guys I was lucky enough to compete against.
And give us one last push, speaking of magic, for the magic of Nigel McGuinness on March 30th.
That's right. It is next Thursday. Good Lord. Less than a week until we do this. It's one night only at the Illusion Magic Lounge in Santa Monica, California, very close to the Milkmore where WrestleCon will be and everything else is going on as well. So go out of your way to do it. If you can go and just Google Illusion Magic Lounge, or if you're on social media at McGuinness Nigel to find information, I'll be plugging it absolutely everywhere. Go out your way to see it. It's going to be a fantastic show. As I said, it's going to be part storytelling, part interview, part magic. I promise you this, it's going to be a night that you will remember for the rest of your lives. I know I certainly will.
Awesome stuff, Nigel. Great to talk to you again. Thank you so much for all the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Poz. Stay lucky.